Your avoidant ex got into a rebound relationship pretty much right after you guys' breakup. And in this video, we're going to be going over the timeline of that rebound relationship and when it's going to crash. The first stage of the timeline is week 0 to 2. This is going to be the relief and rush. What this essentially is that this is the honeymoon phase of any relationship. They are excited because it's something new, there's no pressure, and they're feeling as though this is it. This is the relationship for them that they've been waiting for, and everything is perfect sunshine and rainbows. But what we have to understand is that this is just because it is something new, and because it's something new, they are distracted by everything else that's going on, so they're going to feel happy, they're going to feel no pressure, and it's not going to trigger their avoidant attachment style. And what you typically see in the first weeks is that you are not going to be dealing with conflicts or anything that might come up that might be a concern to either partners, so they're not going to be dealing with anything on that level. So this relationship is feeling like it's the one. But we have to understand that this is temporary, right? Just like any relationship that you've ever been in, that first weeks are always going to feel like the greatest, and then when you guys start moving on, you start to deal with more of that commitment phase and dealing with any conflicts or things that need to be worked on, and that's how it's going to be for this avoidant. But they are just basking in this newness of that relationship and feeling as though this is the right one, and they're oblivious to what is actually going on, and that is, this is just the initial temporary state, and there's going to come the time where they're going to have to deal with that commitment state, which is naturally going to bring up things that both sides are going to have to work through, which segues perfectly into the second stage of this timeline, and that is weeks 3 through 6, and that's the hairline cracks. What this essentially is that they're going to be moving towards that commitment stage, right? They're starting to get serious, they're starting to get real. This is not something that's new. That honeymoon phase is fading out, and because of that, they're going to have to start to deal with some minor conflicts that's going to come up, and depending upon how that partner is going to respond to these conflicts and trying to work on them is going to cause this avoidant to either pull away, which is most likely what's going to happen and what you've experienced, or they're going to try to work it out with them. But we all can pretty much pick which one of these they're going to choose, and that is they're going to pull away because they haven't done what is necessary to work on this avoidant attachment style. So they're going to repeat that same patterns over and over again that they've repeated with you, but it's most likely going to be worse because the more that they don't actually work on this, the worse it's going to get for them, and each person is going to experience it typically more extreme. So this new partner is going to get the brunt end of this and start to get a taste of their dismissive avoidance. Essentially, this is a new person, a new relationship, but the same defenses that is going on, and they're going to repeat exactly the same things that they were doing with you with this person. But the unfortunate part for both you and this new relationship is that this avoidant is still not realizing how they're the one, right? There's one common denominator, and that is them, because again, this is heavily due to this attachment style and them not doing anything to try to work through this. The third stage of this timeline is going to be months 2 to 3, and that's going to be the comparison and cognitive dissonance. What this essentially is that they are starting to compare you and the relationship that they had to this rebound relationship, and they're starting to really realize how much you've provided for them on so many different levels. You were somebody who was loving, understanding, who cared, and who wanted to do everything that you possibly could to try to make this relationship work. And instead of being appreciative of that and trying to show that same to you, they took it for granted and believed that they could find that in somebody else. And it's typically in these months that they're realizing that that's not going to be the case, right? They can't 100% replicate you in somebody else. It's impossible. Nobody can replicate anyone in this world with somebody else. That's why every relationship and person are special. And this is where they're realizing that reality, because they've really believed that they can find somebody else, that they're the reason why the relationship does work, and everyone else is the reason why it doesn't, because they're too needy or whatever they're telling themselves to convince them that this attachment style is necessary and it's not them. But because this rebound isn't delivering the same depth that you were able to, they're starting to see how this is a facade and how they are missing you and how you were able to provide them with that emotional safety. They start to see through this avoidant attachment style and seeing all the ways that they were essentially causing this relationship to not work, and they're forced to feel all of those unwanted emotions that comes with that realization. And the fourth stage is going to be months 3 through 6, and that's where there's there's this withdrawal and deviation. And what is going on here is that this avoidant is starting to pull back from the relationship, and they're getting irritable, and they're starting to label this new partner as being too much. The intimacy that partner in that rebound relationship starts to trigger old avoidance, and the connection starts to thin out. And if you are a fly on the wall, this would look very familiar to you, because it's exactly what you experienced in your relationship with this new person, because they again haven't done what is necessary to work through this attachment style. So of course they're going to repeat that same cycle over and over again. They may be with a new person, but they still have their old patterns and of course this attachment style. So they're just going to do the same things they did with you with this new person. And this is something where this relationship is going to start to head down the same path that it did with you, and it's going to be dependent upon how this partner in this rebound relationship responds to this, right? If they're going to do the same things in that relationship, this could be a cycle that drags out just like it did with you, where that person is trying to do the best they can to make everything work out, but it's just not going to, because again, this avoidant attachment style. Or they could simply just not want to do it anymore, because again, not everyone is going to respond to their avoidance the same way. Some people have patience like you did and try to do everything that you possibly can, and there's others who don't have that patience and will only give them so much, and when they see that they're not getting anything back and they can see through this attachment style, they will just walk away from it. But what tends to happen is that person ends up getting locked into this cycle, because an avoidant does a really good job of convincing them, whether they realize it or not, that it's not them, and they make them feel as though there's something wrong with what they're doing. So because of that, they tend to just entertain this and continue to go through this cycle without even realizing that they're going through this cycle, right? But essentially, this is where that avoidant attachment style is really showing its head and is starting to really affect that rebound relationship. And the fifth and final stage, which is going to be month 6+, is going to be the collapse or quiet fade. This is where they start to do the ghosting, they start to slowly fade away from the relationship, all the different things that you experienced at the end of you guys' relationship, they are doing this in that rebound relationship. But what makes this a little bit different is that they use this rebound relationship to essentially help them to not have to deal with the reality of losing someone like you. So because it was a distraction, really, there's not this real longing to want to stay in that relationship from them, right? They may try to keep that person around to make sure that, you know, they can still have them readily available if they need. But what is really going on here is that they're starting to think of ways of trying to get back with you, because they realize the value that you have brought not only in the relationship but also in their life. So what they tend to try to do, instead of going in a direct way to you and trying to see if there's a way that they can work things out and expressing all of this epiphanies that they came to, they would rather do it in an indirect way, which is going to be watching you through social media, or maybe even seeing if there's a way that they can text you and kind of open up the conversation to see where you're at. And this is an attempt to try to reel you back in, and they're hoping that you're going to take the bait and want to try to work things out so that they can end things with that rebound relationship and go to you, because you are a safety net for them. And it's important for you to understand this, because this is something that you need to take into consideration of whether or not you want to try to entertain this, right? I'm not saying that every avoidant shares this intention, because there could be some avoidants who actually want to work things out, who are really realizing that this avoidant attachment style is what's causing them to not show up in the relationship, and they want to work things out legitimately with you. But at the end of the day, what we typically see is that this avoidant wants to just keep you there because you are a form of safety net for them. And this is something that's so important for you to understand, because you could fall for this thinking that this is a legitimate attempt, and they just are running the same cycle over and over again. Because we got to understand that an avoidant needs the space away from every relationship so that they can get professional help to work through this. That's typically what is needed here, and they're not even realizing that. So they're just trying to cope by going into the one relationship after another, going back to other ones, to just try to push through these feelings so that they don't have to deal with the real thing, and that is this avoidant attachment style and what had caused them to essentially adopt this way of being, which is their emotional needs were not met due to their caregivers not meeting them and rejecting them. And they have to process that with a therapist to really unravel it and heal from it. And until that's done, there is a high chance that they're not going to be able to show up in a relationship the way that you know that they can. So I know that this is hard to hear, and I know that this is probably something that you are holding on as a last attempt, that this person is going to come back and things are just going to work things out because they're going to realize the magnitude of losing someone like you. But at the end of the day, if this person has gone to this extreme to get into a rebound relationship rather than trying to work things out with you, that should be all that you need to know. They clearly had no intentions in trying to work it out with you, and they're taking you for granted, and now it's time for you to prioritize yourself and doing what's best for you. I know that there is so much emotions that you are going through and you are so confused, but I promise you that if you prioritize yourself and you start to take the next best steps for you each and every day, it is going to inevitably lead you down a path that is in the best interest for you, and when you look back on it, you will realize it is the best decision that you made for yourself. I hope that you did find value in today's video. If you did, please make sure to hit the like button. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.